There's still 2 more MPC meetings to go this year, not forgetting the possibility of further ratings downgrades to South Africa's credit rating. We've seen Fitch come out with a statement recently saying it doesn't believe in Malusi Gaba's newly announced inclusive growth action plan, and that it will have the effect of raising growth. Remember, 14 points, not many of them anything new, just sort of cementing and setting some dates that will be missed. And Fitch doesn't believe for a moment that that will actually occur. The Rand has been under siege this year from numerous self-inflicted and external wounds. This is the Moneymakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield, and tonight we're looking at the risk to the currency for the rest of this year. Joining me for the discussion is Busisiwe Radebe, who is economist at Nedbank and interest rate derivative specialist, that's a big title, at RMB. For a big guy, Eerenstein joins us this evening as well. We all know what happened last week with the MPC, so let's look forward to what the risks are for this currency. It almost doesn't matter what the Reserve Bank does, I would argue, Andre, for the rest of this year, whether rates are cut, whether rates stay flat, or even if they rise a little bit by December. Maybe rising would send a different signal, but so flat or cuts for the rest of this year, it doesn't really matter.
Well, I think the cutting cycle is going to be very shallow. So when you look at inflation and inflation expectations, that's really going to be the focus of what the SARB are going to look at. You know, for the whole year, we've had our pressures have been, our self-inflicted wounds have been brushed aside very quickly. But we've been basically shoved around by the strength or the weakness of the dollar. And that's really going to be a focus of what the Fed is going to do. Will the Fed raise rates? Will the Fed be behind the curve when it comes to interest rate movements? My view is that they will be. I think they're going to be very entrenched in terms of what are we trying to achieve. We need to reduce that balance sheet at a slow pace. And I think they'll be behind the curve in terms of interest rate policy, and that will support the Rand in the medium term.
So much depends on what Janet Yellen does. I mean, she changes her mind more often than, I don't know, somebody who visits the Saxon Wall Tribune as to whether or not to send an email. Should I send the email? Should I not send the email? Nobody sends emails from the Saxon Wall Tribune anymore. But Janet Yellen keeps changing her mind, and that depends on the latest set of data points that came out. Most recently, she was saying, okay, I know we said we were going to be quite aggressive and raise rates 4 times this year, but we're not. Unless we do, in which case we might, but we're not going to at this stage because growth isn't what we thought it was going to be and inflation isn't as scary as we thought it was going to be. So don't take anything I say seriously. Which makes it very difficult for guys like yourselves, Busi, to actually make a call on where this blooming thing is going to go.
I mean, it makes it very, very difficult because you've got these 2 forces going on. On the one hand, you think, oh my word, what we're doing domestically and on the political side is going to whack us. But then we're actually not seeing the consequences of that at all, because then you get sort of a bad retail sales data out from the US, and Janet Yellen's like, ooh, the 1 week, this is what we're going to do. And the next thing is like, oh, inflation is far too low. So what do we? So it just makes life very, very difficult. But it also just makes interest rate decisions in the country very, very difficult, because you've got these 2 forces, these 2 sort of forces going on, and you don't actually know what is going to happen next. So yes, a lot of it is what is going on in the States, what is going on with emerging markets in general. Are we still sort of the flavor of it feels like the year, or can that turn around any second now? It depends on what's going on with the States. It was turning until Janet Yellen opened her mouth, and suddenly, I know we said take money out of emerging, put it back. Put it back in emerging markets immediately, and go away from the US. And that's in the last 2 weeks. And that has saved us, because politically we've done some funky things. If we didn't have that kind of environment, we'd actually just be in absolute trouble. So
I've never heard funky used in that context before. I've used other words used in that context before, but not funky.
But this is a family show, so we're going to keep it that way. But we have
you know what she means. You know what she means.
I mean, we've spoken about the 14-point plan and what that actually means, or whatever. There was no detail there at all. And I think that sort of, that directionlessness has gotten people very, very spooked. There is actually no direction here. In any other environment, the Rand would have weakened quite a bit. But then we saw the retail sales sort of data coming out from the States, and that was very weak. And we saw sort of the inflation numbers come out very, very soft, and we were protected. We said Chinese growth coming out, and that was very firmer than what people were expecting.
6.9%. Pretty good growth. Media, the other media, not us. Many of the other media are overplaying the downgrade scenarios. We may very well get a downgrade of our local debt by one or even two of the ratings agencies by the end of the year to sub-investment grade. But don't all three have to pull the trigger before we then automatically, because we don't automatically get excluded from all of the bond indices, do we?
Well, it's just certain indices, and I think when you look at the big ones like the WIGB,
City we care about.
exactly. So you're talking about, I think the numbers are something like $10 billion
Yeah.
worth of outflows, and these are passive funds. So passive funds, when the rating gets changed, off they go. And I think when you start having that sort of implication into the local market, I think you're going to have a big initial reaction, but it's going to move over time.
Okay. What would be the purpose of cutting interest rates so painfully slowly? Would it have any economic impact? I mean, sure, I would like by this time next year to be paying 50 basis points less on my debt and 75 basis points by Christmas next year. That would make a difference in my life, my tiny little life. Is it really going to stimulate the economy? Is it really going to make a difference? Why even bother if you're going to tinker with interest rates rather than slash and burn?
You must do it responsibly. So you don't want to cut very deeply, and next thing the rand weakens quite a bit, and now you have to raise again.
Yeah.
So the whole thing with sort of what the Reserve Bank is trying to do is to anchor inflation expectations. So like you're supposed to know what they're going to do. So if you are way different and your feeling is way different from what they're actually doing at a rate decision, then you know they haven't actually anchored what you were thinking about. So you don't want to bring that instability about. You actually want to just give them a chance to just take a breath and we're going to do it slowly. And if something happens to the rand, we know we didn't go too deeply. We don't necessarily have to again raise rates. So that's
it's reflecting the political vulnerabilities. Now, let's assume that a market-friendly scenario emerges in December. Let's put it that vaguely, because I know you guys don't like to talk politics. But a market-friendly scenario evolves in December, and you have a ticket of Cyril and Gwede, or Cyril and the Treasurer General of the ANC's Willem Kize are on the same sort of ticket, and they're more market-friendly than perhaps the alternatives. Do we get given the benefit of the doubt? The ratings agencies are supposed to deliver their pronouncement early December. Maybe they hold off and see what prevails at the elective conference. Maybe they hold off until January, saying, actually, this is too big to call right now. Let's pause. Then they say they don't downgrade us. Then suddenly everything changes once again, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're looking at me as if I've had a drink before coming on air tonight.
No, I think you're 100% right. I think they'll adapt and look and see what's happening. They'll tend to be a lot more reactive. So I think when it comes to a big market movement like December, I think they'll adopt a principle of wait and see. And whether we get downgraded in December or whether it's June next year.
You're treating it as inevitable?
I think yes.
Okay.
I think it's an inevitable thing, because economic growth, market friendly or not, we are not going to be able to generate the economic growth. Monetary policy, and the Reserve Bank has said it many times, cannot take the heavy lifting of the economy. So 50, 75 basis points, yes, won't stimulate the economy all that much. It's more of a message.
The last person who is as confident about a fact as you are about the inevitability of a downgrade, his name is Sean, and he's the National Director of Public Prosecutions. He said, the time for second guessing the National Prosecuting Authority is over. That's what he said. And then 2 weeks later, he second-guessed himself, and then he backed off from probing Gordon's charging. So be careful of certain statements. Are you as certain, Busi, that we are inevitably hitting a downgrade scenario, if not in December, and because of the growth constraints, regardless of what happens to politics, which could be positive, by June next year, the ratings agencies go, look, we gave you the rope, you hanged yourself, sorry.
Okay, I'm not as certain as Andre on this one. I mean, we still have the medium-term budget coming in October, so we might have more detail. We were told we were going to have more detail for that 14-point plan. Maybe there will be more detail, and maybe that negative reaction,
more detail on rubbish is still rubbish.
But say that there is detail, and there's something serious, because I mean, people have pulled apart that 14-point plan. They've absolutely, and maybe we've learned a lesson now, and something concrete is going to come out in October, and there's actually going to be a sort of, the planning ministry is going to be involved, the Ministry of Small Business is going to be involved.
Oh, please no.
The DTI at least, you know, it's going to be
Well,
involved
let's get
in
the
this
public
plan.
protector involved while we're at it, yes.
But maybe something's going to do, those people who actually need to get this economy going, like EDD, they're actually going to be there. So maybe we get something going there, and maybe this fear that I've got that we're going to miss our sort of fiscal deficit targets, maybe that fear is not there. So something comes out neutral from that, and we have sort of a positive political spin. And say now it is a Cyril that comes out there and says, you know what, first time I am now elected president of the ANC, next day I ask for a commissioning of inquiry, and we're going to start this thing and we're going to do something immediately. I think they might give us the benefit of the doubt, and I don't know that that's not.
You thought that I'd been drinking.
It is. We can't call everything off, but there is a possibility of many. It could go the other way around, but I mean that is a possibility.
The point being, and I think we've established that, is it's so massively uncertain that to make a forecast with any degree of certainty either way is in itself a high-risk activity.
No, sure, and I think any sort of forecasting is a high-risk activity, particularly when we're dealing with a multitude of environments out of the US, the Eurozone, Asia, and obviously
Brexit!
And, well...
You know, they talk about chaos, yes.
And then we look at our own backyard. You know, forecasting is a problematic issue, but I think when you look at that, what does it mean? It means that confidence doesn't get restored very quickly. We need confidence in order to generate economic growth. We need people to start investing. We need corporates to start investing. And that takes a long period of time. For confidence to be restored is the key. And I think when you look at economic growth and how that trajectory that goes from confidence into economic growth, into policy, takes a long time. And I think just 6 months is not going to do it.
No. I've got a 3-point plan for the minister. The first one is stop wasting money. The other one is stop your colleagues stealing money. And the third one is restore confidence. Whatever it takes to get those 3 things done, we'd be on the road to recovery, Busi.
No South African would disagree with you right there, Bruce. We all want that, but I think sometimes our politicians have other interests that they are looking at the moment, but we all absolutely want that. That stop wasting money is fiscal consolidation. Yeah. It's like we've had, I remember budget review in the past, where we actually had a little chapter at the back in one of the appendices where they said, you know what, this is how we're going to save money, and this is where we got an extra money, because we do need money, so we have to save money. We've had that before, but we're missing something at the moment, and there's a lot of self-interest.
Busisiwe Radebe, thank you very much indeed. Busisiwe Radebe is economist at Nedbank and interest rate derivative specialist at RMB, Andre Eerenstein, joining us this evening on the Moneymakers. Lots more hurdles, lots more problems, as they call them in politics, challenges to the currency. It continues to be vulnerable from internal and external pressures, but also it is being supported by the fact that we are not the only place where people are crazy. We've got the world that has gone crazy, and that's actually giving us an opportunity to decraze ourselves a little bit, hopefully in the next 6 months. More from us next time. Good night.